Today look like every other day. And is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Many of us get wrapped up in the mundane of our daily lives. And so much so that our goals, our dreams, and our desires are either taking a back seat or they're completely forgotten. And so it is in this ball of the mundane that we need to start to unravel so that we can no longer accept the mediocrity that our lives have become. And instead, when we don't pursue mediocrity, we can actually start to pursue excellence. And isn't that truly what life's all about? Pursuing the most that we can become. And so today, my guest is going to share his story and his phenomenal work that he's doing in transforming men's lives, helping them unravel the mundane that they currently live in. And before we get into that, we all know that being a man today has never been more challenging. And so this pain is real for us. It's the pain of loneliness and of worthiness, and it's masked by our anger and our resentment. And it's all because we are uncertain and afraid to take that next step. So if you're tired and fed up of where you're at, then I'm going to encourage you to start your hero's quest, where you can become more, accomplish more, and live more than ever before. Just go to members.net and start your quest today. And with that, let's get on with today's episode.
The average man today is sleepwalking through life, many never reaching their true potential, let alone ever crossing the finish line to living a purposeful life. Yet, the hunger still exists, albeit buried amidst his cluttered mind, misguided beliefs, and values that no longer serve him. It's time to align yourself for greatness. It's time to become a revolutionary man. Stay strong, my brother.
Welcome, everyone, to the Revolutionary Man podcast. I'm the founder of the Awakened Man movement and your host, Alan DeMonso. Let me start by asking you a couple of questions. Do you have a circle of men that you can lean on? And if so, great and congratulations. But if not, why not? I think for many men, we struggle with this idea that we need to be this lone wolf and figure things out on ourselves. We have this fear and complacency within us to reach out and ask for help, whether we think that that's something that's going to make us feel weak or be shameful of it. But the truth of the matter is that when we choose to lean into the things that are hurting us, the things that are holding us back, that what we find is that what resides inside of us is much greater than anything that we can ever be faced against. And so today, I have a guest who is teaching men how to unravel their lives, or actually get their lives put back together if they may be unraveling, however you want to look at that. So allow me to introduce my guest today. Mark Jordan, that is, has been married with his wife for over 35 years, and they have 2 daughters and 2 wonderful son-in-laws. And Mark is the author of several books, and he's also started a couple of companies and started a couple of churches as well. But he realized that after a successful career in investment banking, that he wanted to do more with his life. And so he founded Unravel groups. And Unravel is focused specifically on leading men to transforming and progressing their lives in all aspects in every way that they show up. And so Mark's really passionate about mentoring men and discovering better ways for them to reorient their lives. So welcome to the show today, Mark. How are things, my friend?
Thank you so much for having me. Great. And I'm just really excited to be here with you today and to chat about men and their future and how we can all grow and move the ball down the field.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. There's so many different ways that men's groups have come about, and we're going to get into that today a little bit later. But my opening question to all my guests as they come here is, we talk a lot here at the Awakened Man about every one of us being on our own hero's quest or our own journey. And so when I want you to think about your life, tell us about a time when you knew that things just had to change. What did you do about that? And how has that experience shaped you into the man you are and the work that you're doing?
Interesting question. At 61, I can tell you I've had a lot of experiences like that in my life. So it's more of a question of, which one to pick. Yeah, I'd say probably the thing that jumps out for me right now, or that's probably worth highlighting, is back in 2009, I was playing racquetball one day, which I love to play, along with a lot of other sports, and went for a shot. And next thing you knew, my back was in excruciating pain and pretty much in bed for 3 days. That kind of sent me on a journey that I'm still going on, will be on likely for the rest of my life, of 24/7 pain. It's never stopped. I've had 3 back surgeries, a couple fusions, And, it's a journey that's just likely going to continue on. And, what I've learned from that has been so much. And would I like for that to be gone? Of course. I'm certainly not looking to continue it. That having been said, since it's likely not going away, I can tell you I'm grateful for it at this point in my life. And that's a recent evolution for me. Certainly for the vast majority of the time to that point, it's been, of course, all the standard things you think about. I can't do this anymore. That's not fair. Why can't I do that? The pain's awful, et cetera, et cetera. And all those are certainly valid feelings and certainly things that, I've grappled with. But I look back on that now, the journey I'm on and have been on to this point in that regard. I'll call it the journey of pain. And we all experience pain in our life in lots of different ways, and I've had it in my life in other ways, just happens to be one area. And a couple things that have really changed me through this experience. The first one I would say is grace. Alan, prior to this 2009 beginning of this journey, I certainly didn't have as much grace and understanding for people that struggle with challenges of life, let's just say. They come in all different flavors, but I just didn't have compassion, to the level that I feel like I should have. And man, this changes you quickly because you start realizing, wow, I'm just a tiny step away from being in the same boat that a lot of other people are. And by the way, I'm a tiny step away from being in bed every day. And so it really caused me to have just a greater degree of grace and compassion for people who are struggling, even struggling in areas that I don't understand, that don't make sense to me. And I'd say the second big thing that came out of it is time. I took all that time that I was spending, which was great. And I would wish I had it back, but all the time I was spending in sports and activities, and redirected that into, things that are eternal building endeavors and initiatives, and just getting involved in areas that maybe I wouldn't have previously, or certainly maybe not to the degree. So there's been so much good that's come out of that and changed me and continues to build my character.
Yeah, isn't it so true, right? We truly are forged in the fire of our challenges, are we not? And I think, you mentioned two big words there. You talked about grace and you talked about compassion. And I want to thank you for also saying, recognizing that the pain is still there, that part of your life and for you will probably be there for the rest of your days, but the learning from it. And so because those words are so big, especially the word grace, I'd like to spend a little bit more time really talking about what does grace look and feel like for you today, and how we can maybe help other guys understand exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think it first starts with just growing your inner vocabulary. I think that's the first step. It's easy to say have more grace or have more patience. Patience has certainly been a lifelong struggle of mine as well. It starts with inner vocabulary, right? And learning new tools and new ways to interact with yourself in the moment, which that requires, of course, a degree of self-awareness. I love Henry Cloud's definition of integrity, the courage to meet the demands of reality. So we got to live in reality first. That's okay. I'm more self-aware when I'm not experiencing grace, or when I'm not showing grace toward other people, whether it be just in my own thinking, or whether it be overtly toward them. Then it's developing new vocabulary and new tools to equip myself for that. And Alan, one of the first steps for that for me is just to being more effective at apologizing. Like in the moment, if I'm overtly not showing that grace, like, hey, I'm sorry. That's not the version of myself I wish you would have seen in this moment. So I'm sorry. Let's rewind that and go again.
Man, I just love that last piece is just so profound, right? Being able to apologize and know that we've made that mistake. And I think back to earlier in my career is, leading teams and that. And I can think of, there was a time in my life where I wouldn't have admitted that I had made a mistake. That would just be, forget it. You just don't do that. Leaders don't do that. But what I recognized that when I started to actually take responsibility for my actions and my words, that life started to change for not just for me, but for them. People actually start to trust you more because they see that you recognize the vulnerability and the pieces, the parts of you that aren't perfect, and that you're willing to step into that and do something different. I think that's such a great way that you've explained that.
Well said. Well said.
So let's talk a little bit about your Unravel groups piece here. So what is it all about? And you talked a little bit about how you're starting it, how you've started it, but let's get into Unravel groups and what its purpose and mission is.
Yeah, I don't know if this has been your experience over time, but it's certainly been mine and a lot of people I know, that generally speaking, there's this acceptance of mediocrity in the marketplace and in the people's personal life as well. So that's really been a theme I've noticed over the years with men, including myself at times. It's challenging, to constantly be looking to grow. So this idea of the pursuit of excellence has become something that's really been important to me over time. So Unravel was founded to lead men in that regard and in the pursuit of excellence. That's really what it's about. Leadership as well, of course, but the pursuit of excellence. That's really what the focus of Unravel is. And every man feels stuck in some area of his life. I mean, I don't care how successful he is. I don't care how unsuccessful he is. Everyone is stuck in some area. So everyone can benefit from growing in this area of excellence in leadership. And the word Unravel came about because we feel like first you have to go through this process of disintegration before you can go through the process of integration. So it's unraveling all of this stuff in our lives that, of course, is a lifelong journey. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not conquered in overnight, but unraveling all of this stuff in our lives in whatever area it is, whether it's faith, family, friends, fitness, finances, whatever it is, unraveling that, and then learning new tools to move the ball forward and grow in that area. So we have multiple environments to Unravel, but Unravel 1, which is our core and kind of founding environment, it's a 12-month environment, 12-month small group environment where men in community learn to pursue excellence together. So that's Unravel 1. We've got Unravel Go, which is a self-paced, 6-week or 6-session environment, if you will, for men to sort of have an easier on-ramp to Unravel 1. And then we actually have Unravel 2 for men that have finished Unravel 1. That's a 6-month focus on leadership. And then lastly, Alan, is to move to Unravel 3. Our hope for every man is they would move into an Unravel 3 group that's for life, where they're doing life with men who are about the same things that they are.
Man, what a great structure. I just love that. I was taking copious notes there, and I really like how you've split that up. And I think there's so much power in groups, and that we get an opportunity to, and I think that's how we learn as men how to be men, when we can be in groups and see it being manifested or produced in front of us, that we can see what it looks like. Oh, that's what it looks like for someone to be vulnerable. Man, that guy had so much courage to do that. And you feel that, and you start to feel the things that we've been suppressing and that we've been fighting against. And I think the power of what you've done here with these groups and leading them through these different spots, I just think what a great format that you've developed.
Yeah. And we really believe, and this has probably been your experience too, that sustained growth, it's very hard to do it by yourself. Doing it in a group, it's much easier to scale it, to sustain it over time, because you have men around you that are on the same journey. It's like running a marathon. To go out and do it by yourself, if you've never done it before, it's kind of hard, but you do it with a friend or a group, it's a much easier experience. And it's more gratifying to be on the journey, to complete parts of the journey with other men who are doing it with you.
Yeah, I think how does the saying go? If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, bring others. And I think
that's exactly right. Love it.
So how have you, this is obviously a passion for you in your work now. What are you starting to see? What's a transformation you're starting to see in men in your circle, but also in the circles that they're in their communities? How is that transforming their lives?
It's so exciting, Ellen, to get the testimonials and emails and et cetera, from men who have been through it, and the life has changed from their spouses, their friends. It's so exciting to see it happen. I would say here are the biggest outcomes that we see for men. First, a God-given vision. Men leave Unravel with a God-given vision. And when you have a vision suddenly for your future of your life, it gets more exciting. It really becomes something you're looking forward to waking up every day to participate in. Secondly is a practical framework for moving the vision forward. So it's not enough just to have a vision, you have a framework for moving the vision forward. Then a third thing is a mission statement that kind of comes out of that, like a calibrating, governing, directing statement that every day, every week, every month, you can filter your activities through, to see and calibrate your mission and your vision as it relates to your activities.
And I just love that. One of the things that we do here at the Awakened Man in our groups is the very first module they do. I called it Return of the King. And what it's all about is taking them through a process of ultimately crafting a life mission vision statement for themselves. And so we look at taking down barriers of their limiting beliefs, how their values are either serving them or not serving them. Are they truly living that? And it sounds like we have some similar ideas. I think from our experiences, I think what we find is that when we're out of alignment and we don't have that thing, that idea, that something to connect to, that we tend to struggle as men. Is that what you're finding as well in your work and your life?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's so true. It's easy to just float around and kind of live in status quo on a daily basis and not really be about something bigger.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you talked about, accepting mediocrity. And I can remember years ago, a business mentor of mine, said, beware, his famous quote was always, beware the lollipop of mediocrity, one lick and you suck forever. and that really stuck in my mind, right? How often do we eat a lollipop, right?
Right. Yeah, that's right. And the lollipop tastes good until it doesn't.
Yeah, because it's simple and we may not want to be in that pain. We have this fear that is preventing us from moving forward. And so I want to talk a little bit about that now as well. And what are you finding in your men's work and in Unravel? What are the fears that are holding men back from living the lives that they truly desire?
Yeah, I think a big one is just simply fear of failure. I think that's a struggle all men have, the fear of failure. How am I going to look to the people around me, my loved ones, my friends, if I fail? If I'm not able to really succeed at this endeavor. So to put yourself out there and say, I'm going to craft a vision, I'm going to be about that on a regular basis. Suddenly, now people have a standard, if you will, to hold you to. And if you don't meet it, which you won't meet it perfectly every time, no one does, but when you don't meet it, it doesn't feel good. And in fact, that's something that we talk to guys about when they're starting Unravel is, look, one of the first things you're going to feel is shame, because as you become aware of your possibilities and the opportunities you have, and then you become aware of how far away you are from those, the first thing you're going to do is feel shame, which is, okay, I'm not good enough to do this. And we right out of the blocks want guys to know, hey, that's not the case at all. We're going to take it one step at a time, right, on the journey, this year-long journey together. And you'll see when you look back, wow, the progress I made was incredible. So I think the shame, the fear of failure, I think are the biggest things that hold men back in reaching and pursuing and driving themselves forward.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. When you mentioned the word shame, I was just hit me like a ton of bricks as I just think about my personal journey and starting and working through my things, and then starting doing men's work, and that piece of shame for us to overcome can be such a heavy burden. And when we get the opportunity to be in groups where leaders such as yourself and myself are helping men understand how that's okay to feel that, and that it's not we're not going to climb the mountain in one step. It's going to take time, and we're here for support, and we have the tools. So I know for me, I'm not a book therapist. I'm not, my life experience is what's led me. Yes, I've done some training and I've done some things to help round out my skill to be able to lead men. So tell me a little bit about you. If I was to ask you, what qualifies you to lead men today, what would you say to that?
We get that question in a lot of different, formats and different ways from all kinds of different people and circumstances, in different contexts and circumstances. And, the short answer to that is, I'm a man who has lived life and experienced life just like you have and every other man has. My experiences aren't, of course they feel unique to me, the reality is the labels on those experiences are, there's not that many, and all men have them. So what qualifies me as a man who has encountered them and has a passion for talking about them and a passion for equipping men to make progress in those. That's it. It's not like we created some secret formula, or it's not like we, created some special format or or book or curriculum. All we've done is take from great thinkers, great theologians, great writers, great speakers, and we've curated that content into an environment that meets men in every key area of their life.
I just love that. And I think that what's really important about what you're saying there is that you've taken tools and aspects of life experience and other things that are out there and made this format. And I think earlier you started to rattle off a few. I'll call them. They're probably your powerful F's. Family, faith, finance. Tell us a little bit more about that. Is that really part of the structure of what you're doing with men? Is that how you help them really understand their life?
Yeah, we feel like that everything can be broken down into those 5 categories in one way or another. Some you got to stretch a little bit to get them in one of those labels. But and we feel like first, faith is the wrapping, the container for everything. So that's not really a separate category as much as it is the wrapping or the container that everything else sits within. But yes, the faith, family, friends, fitness, finances, everything in Unravel is going to touch on those areas and equip men with practical tools to make progress in their growth in those areas. That's the word growth that we really try to get men to get excited about, not perfection. So our phrase is progress, not perfection. Perfection is not going to happen. It's never going to happen. But progress can happen every day of your life. And so we're going to give men tools in all of those areas to make progress, and then empower them to recognize that they can make sustaining and scalable progress over time.
Right on. Just love that as well. And I like that you're using the overall encompassing of our faith, because I truly believe that until we recognize that that we cannot do this alone. And even in the group of other men that we're working together as men, we still need something much, much more powerful. We need something more guiding for us. And whether I refer to that as God, others refer it in different ways. The point being is that once we recognize that we have that connection, that life for us seems to be much easier. And I don't know if you find that to be the same in your work.
Yes. And that's one of our values. I mean, in fact, that's part of our overall, mission, is we want people to grow in their relationship with God. We want that to be a part. It's a part of it. And how what that looks like for them and to the depth that it happens varies, of course, but we feel like that's a crucial piece. The crucial piece is to growing in that relationship, which then leads you into making progress in the areas of your life that you need to make progress in.
Yeah, right on. I just want to go a little bit different to a different spot here. Let me ask you, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever been given, and how has it served you?
It's an interesting question. The best piece of advice, well, there's been so much. Again, at 61, I'll look back and go, wow, I've been blessed with so many people investing in my life and giving me wise advice. So, what comes to mind, interesting enough, came about when one of my close friends and I were water skiing one day. And he and I would go water skiing a lot of early Saturday mornings, and we would talk about life and how we orient toward life. And we sort of came up with this phrase as we were riffing a little bit and just kind of having a fun time talking about life. And the phrase is, you can have almost anything you want, but you can't have everything you want. You can have almost anything you want, but you can't have everything you want. And of course, that phrase was a byproduct of tons of great advice I've gotten over the years. And it was just kind of our way of repackaging all this wonderful advice we've gotten into this simple statement that is applicable in your faith. In your personal life and your vocational life. You can have almost anything, but you can't have everything in your life. So we were really talking about it more from an economic standpoint, like possessions and material and growth and financial desires, that you can pretty much have pretty much anything you want, right? But you can't have everything. So it's your economic life is about choices. More importantly, about trade-offs. If I want this, I can't have that. And there's health, there's value in making those trade-offs and developing that muscle. The same thing applies in your personal life. You know, you can't spend 100% of your time with one aspect of your personal life, or the other aspects of it are going to suffer. So it's, what are those trade-offs? What am I intentionally trading off for so that I can make progress in the area of my life or the areas of my life that matter? And I find it to be just so helpful in so many areas of my life, is that is just looking at that. I can have almost anything I want, but I can't have everything I want. And by the way, it's not good to try to have everything you want. It's not healthy.
Yeah, absolutely not. That's what leads to things like obsession, addictions, and other things start to come out when we go on that path. And what I like, what piece of advice is that what you're really saying is for us to live consciously. That's my takeaway from it.
Yes.
Consciously, I can have anything that I want. And now it's about choices and trade-offs and decisions. And then that to me then leads to, now what you're really asking men to do then is to, what do you truly value? And is this decision, this choice worth the trade-off that I'm going to make? So what profound information, piece that you've just given us. I just love that, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been very helpful for me and over time, and it just applies in so many different circumstances. Your most basic of financial choices all the way up to complex personal relationships in your life. So it's very helpful.
Absolutely. So what encouragement would you give to other men who are maybe stuck in their life and they're thinking about wanting to make a change? What would you say to that guy listening right now?
Yeah, I would say, imagine yourself 10 years from now, and you look back on the last 10 years of your life and look at these 5 areas of your life: the faith, family, friends, fitness, finances, and ask yourself, if nothing changes over the next 10 years, how am I going to feel about that 10 years from now? Right. And the vast majority of people are going to say to themselves, I'm not going to feel very good about it. Well, if that's the case, then you got to ask yourself the second question: what are you going to do differently? Because if you don't do something differently than what you're doing now, you are going to keep getting what you're getting in that area of your life. So you got to do something different. Pursue progress. And that's the only thing that's going to make a difference for you, is committing to that growth in your life. Otherwise, status quo, mediocrity, as you've already touched on, it's too easy. It's too simple, and it tastes too good, and it feels too good in the moment to move out of it.
Absolutely. Geez, I just love that. What a great way to put that together. Of everything that we spoke about today, Mark, and maybe there was something we didn't get a chance to touch on. So this is your opportunity to leave our listeners with, what's the one takeaway message you want to make sure they get from our conversation today?
I think I just love coming back to this idea of pursuing progress, and then coupling that with courage to meet the demands of reality. That's integrity. So to be a man who lives in reality and says, okay, here's my reality in these areas of my life. Oh, I see that that's not where I need to be, where I want to be, where God's called me to be. Now I'm going to demonstrate courage. I'm going to lead myself courageously. I'm going to lead people around me courageously, and I'm going to make progress in those areas. And of course, we believe Unravel is a great tool, a great environment to affect that change that men need.
And just love that. What a great way to wrap our conversation up today. I just want to say once again, thank you so much, Mark, for spending time with me today. And the work you're doing with Unravel is just so needed. We need men's groups. We need different perspectives on how we go and shape and help men, guide them through to that next phase of their life. So if they're interested, if there's a guy listening today is interested, wanting to get involved with your program, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
The best way is to go to unravelgroups.com. At unravelgroups.com, there's everything they can need. Join a group, get some of the self-paced material that we have, get exposed to some content. We've got an incredible blog that has very practical, helpful content for making progress in your life. So yeah, unravelgroups.com, you can get exposed to all of our social media links there and get plugged into that as well.
Absolutely. I'm going to make sure all that information is in the show notes, including your social media, and folks can get a chance to reach out to you. I want to say once again, thank you so much for being on the show. Love the conversation today.
Thank you so much, Alan. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I enjoyed it, man.
Thank you for listening to the Revolutionary Man podcast. Are you ready to own your destiny? To become more the man you are destined to be? Join the brotherhood that is The Awakened Man at theawakenedman.net and start forging a new destiny today.